What's going on, y'all? Welcome back to the channel. I'm Frank. This is Morals Over Money. So I've been talking about it for a long time. Now it's time to show and prove, right? Here is the podcast. This is the first episode. The brother that's featured in this first episode goes by the name of Fly. Served over 50 years in prison. 50 years. Half a century. 50 years. That's crazy, right? I'm not even 50 years old. Anyway, the brother served 50 years in the penitentiary in the federal system. Not only was it 50 years, but he was at ADX. He was at Atlanta. He was at Lewisburg. He was at Marion. He was at all the worst of the worst places, right? He was there before they started the AB. He was good friends with Barry Mills. Anybody that knows about this federal system and the Big Four, Barry Mills is a big name. He's going to talk about him. He's going to talk about other factions. This man at one time was looked at as the face of the DC blacks in the federal penitentiary. I sat down with him, had an awesome conversation over the course of 2 days. We went out to eat. We spoke. We kicked it. We had a very good time. Spoke on the phone numerous times before and after. I promise you his story is not only very interesting, but it's also inspiring to see somebody. Because the man didn't start with 50 years. He had a life sentence. You know, if I'm not mistaken, he had life plus 75. But he didn't lay down. He kept on fighting and fighting and fighting and eventually made it. When he made it to ADX, the lieutenant that took him in said, "Nice to meet you. This is the place you will die. They will carry your body out this back door." Imagine that. So check out his story. I'm going to link his Cash App in the description and comments. And I'm also going to have it on the screen. So if you feel compelled to contribute. Imagine doing 50 years in prison. Imagine what changes. Imagine all the family you lose. Imagine how hard it is to get back up on your feet. If any of y'all want to contribute to the brother, please do so. I compel you to. You know, I don't never ask anybody to donate any money to anybody or anything. You know, with that being said, I hope y'all enjoy it. Let me know what you think. So what's going on, y'all? Welcome back to Morals Over Money. This is Frank. We got a special guest today. Let the brother introduce himself, just for the fact that I don't want to do him any injustice on an introduction. Introduce yourself, please, brother.
Assalamu alaikum. My name is Khalif Abdul Kwabi Mujahi. Everybody call me Fly from Washington, D.C.
Well, first of all, thank you for taking the time to sit down and speak with me today and give this story to the viewers.
Pleasure.
Absolutely. How's your day going, first of all, brother?
Pretty good. All praise be to Allah.
All right. So I saw your story on a couple different channels, piqued my interest. And usually when I come across something that I see a story or a person that I might want to interview, I try not to watch too much stuff on them because I don't want to have a biased opinion,
Right.
But I want to have just enough that I know a little bit of the story. So something that I haven't heard you speak about, tell me a little bit about where you were born, upbringing, things like that.
I was born in Washington, D.C., over in Northeast, but when I was about 3 or 4, we moved over in the southeast part of Washington, D.C., called Congress Heights.
Okay.
And that's where I was raised, in Congress Heights, D.C.
All right. 2-parent home, 1-parent
home? Mother and stepfather, but my father was always in my life.
Okay. Siblings?
Yeah, I got siblings. I had 4 sisters and 3 brothers and 5 sisters. You know, some half sisters, but my oldest 2 sisters are deceased. You know, I got 3 sisters left.
Okay.
Daughter was murdered.
Okay.
My oldest daughter.
That's something I'd like to touch on. We'll come back to that. So your household was what era was this? This is the 50s?
The 50s, yeah.
Okay.
50s.
What was DC like back then?
When I was born, coming up, DC was it was more like we was closed in because we couldn't go over certain parts of Maryland and Virginia in the 50s. You know, they didn't really start. It was still like in the days where we couldn't go use bathrooms in white establishments, and we couldn't go over certain parts of Maryland and Virginia because racism was still strong back then. And DC was a melting pot. It was closed in, and then it started expanding. But it was mostly a black city. You know what I mean? We might have had 3 or 4 white families that I knew of that lived in the city at the time, and they growed up just like us. They was just part of the community. But DC was things didn't really change in DC till '68 when Martin Luther King got killed in the riots. That's when people started coming out, and my era, my generation started coming out, and we was hustling. Because once we started looting and stuff, he said, might as well just keep on hustling. Might as well just keep on breaking the law. You know what I mean? Because we was mad. Dudes in my generation.
How old were you when that happened, brother?
15.
Okay.
Nah, I was 14.
So
got killed.
That's a critical age too.
Yeah.
You know, that
yeah.
12, 13, 14.
Yeah.
What was your life like? What was that like when you remember hearing Martin Luther King was shot and killed?
Well, I was in school, and the older guys was walking around screaming and talking about, they just killed Martin Luther King. Everybody come out to school. And I remember a guy named Joe Murray, who was an older guy. His brother was one of my best friends, Pee Wee. And we took a bus. We took a DC Transit bus, and we made the bus driver get off the bus, and we took it. And Joe drove the bus. I said, where we going? He said, we going looting. I ain't even know what looting was. But, and man, we was breaking car windows of every white person came down the street in their cars. We was turning cars over. And then once word spread it more in Southeast, all the old hustlers and the old gangsters, they was pretty much organizing, telling us what to do. You know what I mean? So that was a turning point in our life, man, where we really learned racism. You know, because Martin Luther King was such a powerful leader. You know what I mean? Even those us that didn't follow him, we knew who he was. But to hear he was assassinated, that ignited something in all of us, man, that changed our way of thinking about the United States and the country.
That's something else I was going to ask you. Did you identify with Martin? Did you identify, is that something that, what he was preaching, and what he stood for? Is that something that the youth embraced and identified at that time?
Not me and my generation, because we was hoodlums. We ain't caring nothing about marching. We definitely wasn't thinking about turning the other cheek and getting bitten by dogs and water holes.
You identify more with Malcolm than Martin?
Yeah.
Gotcha.
Yeah, we was more on man, we crushing something. We ain't going for that.
Yeah.
Once you come to an age when you come off the porch and you feel like I'm going to embrace the hustling world, and you see the guys with the big Cadillacs and dress nice, and go around certain parts of DC and Southeast. We used to go around Willow Road where all the dope boys and be around there gambling, and see everybody put up in the Cadillacs, and all the women come around there, want to be associated with the dudes getting money. So we was more attracted to that lifestyle. You know what I mean? We wasn't caring about no marching and turning the other cheek.
Yeah, absolutely. Let me ask you something. So during this time, this was before, the crack area and before all that stuff. Yeah. So what was the main means of getting money for street dudes?
Selling dope.
Okay, so heroin, by dope, you mean?
Yes. Well, all the dudes that was getting money in my neighborhood at the time that was known for getting money was dope boys. But the dudes in my age and my generation, we were starting to hear about stick up. We start off stealing cars, and we start off breaking in houses, and then we going back and forth to juvenile prisons and joints, and you hear about a dude down there that got a bank robbery. Say, he got a bank robbery. And I said, man, we might as well try to get us a bank robber. You know what I mean? Because, man, we doing a little petty stuff. You know what I mean? But if you hear somebody in there from robbing a jewelry store or bank, man, he big. You know what I mean? So once you learn you can get more money by demonstrating and participating in other crimes, you always want to do something where you could be on a level with somebody doing something you ain't done yet. You know what I mean? So I was attracted to that lifestyle.
Yeah, I agree. In your home, would you say you had a functional, stable home? Was there any type of addiction or any type of dysfunction in your home growing up?
No, only me. You know what? I had a pretty good home life, man. I was always known to be one of the best dressers in my neighborhood. Through all my little crew and stuff, I was always known to be one of the best dressers. My mother, my stepfather gave me everything I wanted. My father spoiled me, you know what I mean? He gave me everything I wanted. But you come up in an environment, in a neighborhood where you want to be one of the crew. You know what I mean? Back then, we never had gangs, but we had little crews represent certain neighborhoods. You know what I mean? And either you stand out for being one of the best fighters in your crew, or you stand out for being one of the best dressers.
Yeah.
You know, or who getting the most money? Who teaching us how to get money? We always follow the older dudes to come up. We come up under. You know what I mean?
Of course, of course.
And they always. What thing I like about growing up in D.C. was the older guys always had an eye for certain dudes. Say he gonna be such and such. He gonna, you know what I mean? So I stood out. You know what I mean? Because I always was considered a thinker and a leader. You know what I mean? And the guys that I looked up to and followed was guys that was fighters and dressers. You know what I mean?
Got you. And 100%. I think there comes a time when we're young and we want to sort of please those older brothers that we look up to,
you don't
right?
want to let them down.
Exactly. And then there comes a time where our life changes and we're the older brothers that we see the young boys pleasing.
Because they want to follow me.
Absolutely. What age was it when you would say that you committed your first crime or the first situation that happened, that you remember being scared to death and you said, man, I'm crossing this line and there's really no coming back from crossing this line?
I was 10.
What was the situation, brother?
And it was an older guy. He went to school with us named Winky. He was about 3 years older and could rumble. When he first moved around there, I'm the first one for him, and he whipped me on the playground. And everybody said, man, we punish Keith. You know what I mean? And I wanted to be his friend. I said, if this dude can whip me like that, and he started coming to get me and certain dudes saying, we ain't going to school, we going to hook school. And he took me with him, and we hooked school, and we went stealing. We went shoplifting. And I got caught. But I remember him telling us, man, if I get caught, don't tell on whoever get away. You know what I mean? So we hooked school. We went down Eastover shoplifting. And I got busted. The police caught me. I was 10 years old, and they took me home and told my mother, say, next time we're going to take him over, see him home to the juvenile center. You know what I mean? And that was my first experience with the law at 10 years old.
What was your mother's reaction to it?
Whipped me, punched me and whipped me, you know. And was surprised that I was hooking school and stealing, because I ain't had to, because like I say, I was one of the best dressers. I always had everything I needed, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So, but the dude Winky was such he was different. Winky stood out. You know, he was older. He was like the oldest dude in elementary school. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But he could fight and he could dress. And I started hanging out with him. You know what I mean? And he said, man, we ain't going to school. We're going stealing. I said, what we going to steal? He said, we're going to steal something down Eastover. and I got busted. I was 10 years old.
Where's Winky at today?
He dead, man. He got killed.
All right. In a penitentiary or?
He got killed on the street.
What age was the first age that you got locked up?
13 or 14. I know I was 14 when I went to Maple Glen. That's the juvenile facility. And I got locked up. See, when you get a lot of truancies and don't go to school and beyond control, and the court system start telling your mother, you got to bring him to court. You know what I mean? So, and I ran away from home. So, and they had a law in D.C. called Beyond Control. You know, say your family can't control your mother, your parent. So I was 14, I did my first bid.
What was the bid for?
Run away from home, truancy.
Just normal childhood stuff.
Just childhood stuff, Beyond Control.
You think about those times, I remember my mother crying to me and begging to me, stop it. You know, you're going to make that decision and I'm not going to be able to bring you home. You know, what I say doesn't matter. I'm sure you remember having those conversations with your mom, right?
Yeah, but you know what, Frank? See, my mother's father, my grandfather, was an old dope fiend.
Mm-hmm.
And my mother's brother, Paul Kenny, was in Alcatraz back with Bumpy Johnson and them. So my mother's side of the family was all gangsters and hustlers. All my aunts was with dope boys and numberbackers or killers. So it was in my family. It was embedded in me. It was ingrained in me. So my mother understood because all her sisters and, like I said, my grandfather was an old dope fiend. My uncles, you know what I mean, gangsters. All my aunts was involved with gangsters or hustlers, or dope boys, and numberbackers. You know what I mean. So I grew up with it.
Yeah.
You know what I mean. So it wasn't really. She didn't want me to follow their path, but she understood it because she know that was in. She grew up with that.
Yeah, that's the same exact. Family. That's the same exact thing with my mother. You know, she come from a line of gangsters.
Yeah.
You know?
So my mother, she used to take me up there to see my grandfather and say, "Daddy, talk to him." You know what I mean? She said, "Boy, what you doing?" And I said, "Dad, I ain't doing no more than everybody else doing."
Yeah.
You know what he used to say? Just don't steal nothing out your mother's house. You take some money, boy, look out for your mother. I said, all right, Dad. Mm-hmm. If you're going to be in the game, be all the way in the game. If you're going to be in the lifestyle, you're going to hustle. You know what I mean? Don't be no punk and don't let nobody take nothing from you. All my cousins and uncles went to jail.
Yeah. When did you do your first adult bid?
In 72.
And explain that situation. Break that down to me a little bit.
Well, see, in D.C., we had juvenile.
Again,